Most garden hacks you see online work for about one season if you're lucky, and only if everything goes perfectly. I know because I've tried a lot of them. But I want to show you something different today, something that Korean farmers have been doing in a bucket, literally a bucket, for over 6 decades. Not as a trend, not as an experiment, as a core farming practice that serious growers have quietly adopted because the results are consistent and the cost is essentially zero. It's made from rice wash water, milk, and the fresh tips of whatever's growing fast in your yard right now. And when you apply it correctly, it triggers a visible growth response in your plants within 48 hours. Not every plant, not every time, but consistently enough that once you see it, you'll never go back to paying $30 a month for bottled liquid fertilizer again. I'm going to show you exactly how to make it today, step by step. And I'm going to be honest with you about what to expect, because the way this actually works is a little different from what most videos tell you, and understanding that difference is what makes it succeed. Welcome to Amish Homestead Roots. This is the channel where we take the methods that worked long before garden centers existed and make them practical for real backyards and homesteads today. Hit subscribe and tap the bell because next week I'm covering the companion ferment that completes this system. And without that one, what I'm showing you today is only working at about half its potential. Let's get into it. Korean natural farming isn't something someone invented in a garage and posted online. It was developed and formalized by a man named Cho Han-kyu, Master Cho, beginning in the 1960s in South Korea. He spent decades studying how naturally occurring soil microorganisms and plant hormones could replace synthetic inputs entirely. Not just reduce them, replace them. His system spread across Korea, into Japan, then through Southeast Asia, into Hawaii, Central America, and increasingly across the United States, because farmers who tried it kept getting results they couldn't explain with conventional thinking. What I find interesting is how closely this aligns with how traditional Amish farmers in the American heartland have always approached the land, working with nature's biology rather than trying to override it. Different culture, different continent, same core understanding. Healthy soil produces healthy plants, and no bottle of fertilizer can substitute for a living, thriving soil ecosystem. The two things we're making today, lab serum and fermented plant juice, are the foundation of the entire Korean natural farming system. Everything else builds on these two. Why this actually works now. Here's where most people's thinking gets flipped around. And honestly, this was the part that changed how I look at my whole garden. We've been conditioned to think about fertilizer as plant food. You add nutrients, plant grows. Simple transaction. But that's not quite how it works, and this is where things get genuinely interesting. The nutrients your plant needs, the calcium, nitrogen, phosphorus, most of that is already in your soil. In almost any garden soil, it's there. The problem isn't scarcity, the problem is access. Those nutrients are locked in a chemical form that plant roots simply cannot pull in directly. They're present, but unavailable, like money locked in a safe you don't have the combination to. What lactic acid bacteria do is act as the combination. They break down organic matter and convert those locked nutrients into a form plant roots can absorb. When you apply lab serum to your soil, you're not feeding the plant, you're unlocking what was already there. The fermented plant juice works on a completely different level, and this is where the plant steroids description comes from. When you ferment the fresh-growing tips of fast-growing plants, you extract the natural hormones that were driving that aggressive growth, specifically cytokinins and gibberellins. Don't worry about those names. What matters is what they do. They signal your plant to produce new growth nodes, extend stems faster, and accelerate cell division. You're giving your plant a concentrated dose of its own biological growth signal. That's the mechanism. That's why it works. Now, I want to be straight with you about something. Synthetic. Fertilizers do work. They produce real results, especially short-term. What they tend to do over time, though, is reduce your soil's natural microbial activity. When nutrients are perpetually ready-made, the organisms that would normally process organic matter go quiet. Your soil becomes dependent, and every season you need a little more product to get the same result. This approach does the opposite. It builds something that gets more effective every year you use it. For a homestead, that long game is everything, what you'll need. Before we start making anything, let me walk you through the full supply list so nothing catches you off guard halfway through. For the Elab serum, you need plain white rice, any kind, nothing enriched or seasoned, whole fresh milk, 2 wide-mouth glass jars, breathable cloth or cheesecloth, and rubber bands to secure the cloth over the jar openings. For the fermented plant juice, you need fresh growth tips from a fast-growing plant, brown sugar, the darker unrefined kind if you can find it, a kitchen scale or a way to estimate roughly equal weights, 1 more wide-mouth jar, and the same breathable cloth. That's it. Nothing to order online, no special equipment. Everything on this list costs either nothing or close to nothing. The only other thing you need is time, because these ferments work over days, not hours. The actual hands-on time is maybe 20 minutes total across the whole process. The rest is the biology doing its work while you go about your life. Making the Elab serum. Step 1. The rice wash. Start here first because this step needs several days before you can move to the next phase. Take about 1 cup of white rice and put it in a bowl. Add 2 cups of water. Now wash the rice, stir it with your hand, rub it between your fingers, work it for about a minute. What you're doing is washing off the surface starch and the wild lactic acid bacteria that naturally live on the rice grain. The water will turn cloudy and milky white. That cloudiness is exactly what you're after. Pour it into your first wide-mouth jar, not the rice, just the wash water. Cover the jar with your cloth and secure it with a rubber band. Set it at room temperature, out of direct sunlight. A countertop, a shelf, inside a cabinet. Anywhere that stays roughly between 65 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Now you wait 5 to 7 days. Here's what you're watching for. After a few days, the liquid will develop a faint sour smell. Not bad, not rotten, just lightly sour like mild vinegar or fresh sourdough starter. That smell tells you the lactic acid bacteria have activated and are multiplying. That's your green light to move to step 2. One important note for those of you in warmer, humid climates: the American South, the Gulf states, anywhere with hot summers. Warm temperatures speed fermentation significantly. Start checking your rice wash water at day 4, not day 7. In high heat and humidity, it can be ready in 4 days, and if you leave it past that point, it overshoots, becomes too acidic, and the bacterial culture begins to decline. Smell it daily after day 3. When it smells pleasantly sour, you're ready. Step 2. The milk activation. This is where most people get it wrong, and it's not complicated, it just requires patience. Take your soured rice wash water and combine it with fresh whole milk at a ratio of 1 part rice water to 10 parts milk. So if you have 1 cup of rice wash water, you're adding 10 cups of milk. Pour this mixture into your second, larger jar. Cover it with the cloth again, same location as before. Wait another 5 to 7 days. During this time, the milk will slowly separate. The white solid proteins, the curds, will rise and form a thick layer at the top. Underneath them, a pale yellow or slightly amber liquid will collect at the bottom. That yellow liquid is your lab serum concentrate. When the separation is clear, usually by day 5 to 7, skim off the white curd layer. Give the curds to your chickens or put them in your compost. Then pour the yellow liquid through a fine strainer into a clean jar. Give it a smell. It should be clean, lightly sour, mildly cheesy. If it smells foul, sulfuric, or genuinely rotten, something went wrong. Possibly with the milk quality or with the fermentation environment. If that happens, start over. A healthy lab serum does not smell bad. Trust your nose here. Store the finished serum in the refrigerator or in a cool, dark location. Kept cool, it stays active for several months. Making the fermented plant juice FPJ comes together faster than the lab serum, but it requires more attention to 2 specific things: when you harvest and what you harvest. These matter more than most tutorials acknowledge, and this is the part that separates a strong FPJ from a mediocre one. Go out to your garden or your land early in the morning, ideally just after sunrise before the heat builds. The reason is specific. Plant growth hormones, particularly cytokinins and gibberellins, are produced overnight and reach their peak concentration in the plant tissue at dawn. By mid-morning, as photosynthesis kicks in, the plant's chemistry shifts away from growth signaling toward light processing. Afternoon harvests produce a significantly less potent extract. Morning harvests give you the plant at its most hormonal, most vigorous state. You want to harvest the fresh-growing tips, the newest, most actively pushing part of the plant. Not mature leaves, not old stems. The tips. That's where the growth hormones are concentrated. The best plants for this are fast-growing, vigorous species. Comfrey is exceptional. If you grow it, start there. Stinging nettle is excellent. Banana suckers, young bamboo shoots, bougainvillea tips. Any plant that grows back aggressively the moment you cut it is telling you it's full of growth hormones. Even fast-growing weeds work well for this. You don't need all of these. One good source makes a solid FPJ. 2 or 3 blended together give you a broader hormonal profile. Weigh your harvested tips, pack them into your jar, add an equal weight of brown sugar, same weight as the plant material. If you collected 200 grams of tips, add 200 grams of sugar, mix gently. The sugar will immediately begin drawing liquid out of the plant cells, and the mixture will become wet and syrupy quite fast. Cover with cloth. Set at room temperature out of direct light. Once or twice a day for the first 24 hours, press the plant material down into the liquid that collects at the bottom. You want all the plant tissue staying submerged. Any material sitting dry at the top can mold. After 7 days, strain out all the plant material and press it firmly to extract every last drop of liquid. What you have left is your fermented plant juice. Deep brown, sweet-smelling, slightly fermented. Store it cool and dark. It keeps for 6 months or longer. Mixing the Korean bucket. Now here's the part that actually makes this work, putting it all together correctly. Take 1 gallon of water. Unchlorinated water is strongly preferred. Rainwater is ideal. If you're using tap water, let it sit in an open container for at least 24 hours first so the chlorine off-gases. This matters because chlorine is an antimicrobial. It's designed to kill microorganisms, and the LAB serum is living microorganisms. Using fresh tap water directly will significantly weaken or kill your culture. To your gallon of water, add 1 tablespoon of LAB serum and 1 tablespoon of fermented plant juice. Stir gently. Your application mix is ready. Now, and I want to be clear about this because it's one of the most common mistakes, do not add more thinking you'll get better results. The LAB organisms multiply after application. You are introducing a starter culture that will expand in your soil. Overconcentration doesn't accelerate the process. It can actually shock the root system through a sudden spike in microbial activity. 1 tablespoon each per gallon is the correct ratio. Stick to it. Apply as both a foliar spray, spraying directly onto the leaves and stems, and as a soil drench around the plant base. Apply at dawn or in the late evening, never during direct midday sun. UV light kills LAB organisms rapidly. A midday spray largely wastes your ferment. Apply every 48 hours for the first 2 weeks. After that, once a week as a maintenance schedule. What to actually expect? Week by week. Let me be real with you here because this is where people either trust the process or give up on it too early. And I don't want you giving up on it too early. In week 1, the most important changes are happening underground and at a microscopic level. The LAB culture is colonizing your soil. The microbial population is expanding and beginning to unlock nutrients that may have been inaccessible. For years, this is foundational work and it doesn't show up dramatically above ground yet, and that's normal. That's supposed to happen. What you might notice, existing leaves getting slightly darker green, new leaves looking unusually vigorous, a bit more new growth than before. These are early signals the system is working. But if you're expecting the plant to be dramatically bigger by day 7, you may be disappointed. That's week 2 territory. Here's an analogy that helped this click for me. Imagine you've been slightly dehydrated for months without fully realizing it. In the first few days of properly hydrating, you don't suddenly feel superhuman. But by the end of the 2nd week, everything works better. Energy, focus, sleep, recovery. That's what's happening to your plant in week 1. The transformation is real and it's building from the inside out. The people who see dramatic results from this are not the ones with the best soil or the most expensive equipment. They're the ones who applied it consistently for 2 full weeks without abandoning the protocol early. In week 2, things get visibly exciting. New growth nodes appear. Lateral branches extend faster than before. In leafy greens, new leaves unfurl and reach full size within a day or 2 of appearing. In tomatoes and cucumbers, the growing tips extend visibly from one morning to the next. This is the growth acceleration in action. By weeks 3 and 4, you have a plant operating at higher biological efficiency. Fruit set accelerates. Root systems are developing faster. The plant's resistance to pest pressure and disease improves because a well-nourished, microbially active root zone is a more resilient one. And this is the part worth understanding for the long term. What you're building is not just a one-season boost. You're building soil that will be more productive every single year you continue this practice. Which plants respond best? The crops that respond most dramatically are heavy feeders, plants that want a lot of nutrients and grow aggressively when conditions are right. Tomatoes are exceptional. Cucumbers, zucchini, melons, beans, corn, and all leafy greens, lettuce, spinach, kale, collards, chard respond very well. Peppers take a little longer to show visible response but come through strongly after the first 2 weeks. Young fruit trees show strong results in new growth and flowering. Root vegetables like carrots, beets, and sweet potatoes do respond, but the application method needs a small modification. More soil drench, less foliar spray, and a slightly adjusted ratio. That's its own technique, and I'll be covering it in a dedicated video, so stay tuned for that one. The mistakes that kill results. This is where most people go wrong, and I want you to avoid every single one of these. Using chlorinated tap water directly is probably the #1 reason people try this and see nothing. Let your tap water sit uncovered overnight first. This is non-negotiable. Harvesting plants for FPJ in the afternoon gives you a significantly less potent extract. Morning harvests matter. I know it's more convenient to step outside at 2 in the afternoon, but if you want the full effect, get out there at sunrise. Sealing your fermentation jars airtight will either build dangerous pressure or create an anaerobic environment that favors the wrong bacteria. Always use breathable cloth covers. Always. Applying in direct sunlight wastes your ferment. UV radiation is antimicrobial. Apply in the morning before full sun or in the evening. Making the concentration too strong is counterproductive. 1 tablespoon each per gallon. More is not more. And giving up after week 1, this one costs people the most. The transformation happens in week 2. Commit to the full 2 weeks before you evaluate whether it's working. If you make 1 batch of this and apply it consistently for 2 weeks, I genuinely think it'll be one of the more useful things you do in your garden this season. It's not a miracle. It doesn't replace good soil management, proper watering, or sensible planting practices. You'll still deal with pests occasionally. You'll still have off-seasons. That's gardening. But what this adds is a biological layer that most American gardens are completely missing. A living, active soil ecosystem that works for your plants around the clock. And once your soil has it, it keeps building on itself season after season. Next week on Amish Homestead Roots, we're making the second ferment in this system. FAA, fermented amino acids, made from fish scraps and brown sugar. The amino acid profile in this ferment is what builds plant proteins and root structure with remarkable speed. When you use it alongside the LAB serum and FPJ you made today, you complete the full 3-part system that old-time farmers called God's fertilizer. The LAB serum feeds the soil biology. The FPJ triggers the growth hormones. The FAA builds structure and protein. Together, they create a self-sustaining growth system that gets more powerful every season. That video goes up next week. If you're not subscribed, there's a real chance you'll miss it. And this technique without that one is only operating at half capacity. Subscribe, tap the bell, and if you've got a question about anything I covered today, or if you've tried Korean natural farming before and want to share what worked, drop it in the comments. I read every one of them, and your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take the first step. I'll see you next week.